Hello, my name is Ethan Quezada, and my lesson plan is on deserts. Starting off, my unit introduction. The benefits of my lesson planning are for teachers, they're able to better link ideas and lesson plans when planning and teaching. Families and parents are able to be more prepared to know about what the unit is their child is learning about and won't have to check every day or week in with the teacher. And it also prepares families to help their students with homework if any is assigned. Students are able to link the lesson together and understand the relationship between them, and schools can keep and repeat lessons for years to come if it is a good and successful unit. Principles of effective unit planning and developmentally appropriate practice. Taking into consideration the needs of each student, effective unit planning creates purpose of each lesson to students, families, other teachers, and administrators. My philosophy of education is I believe that children need to learn more about their outdoor world and understand all the parts of an environment are connected to one another in a way. Also, making each lesson actively engaging with an activity or lesson plan is essential. My regions of the world is the first lesson. This lesson goes over the deserts that are on each continent. It also goes over some of the similarities and differences that each desert has. I chose to include this as the first lesson because it covers content the students may have learned previously, such as the continents. I prepare for individualism by handing out questionnaire sheet with general questions about outside of school life, as well as incorporating fun questions about the upcoming unit on deserts. Having fun questions that excite the kids will create a bond where they want to interact because you are fun, which can build trust. Adaptations for this lesson are focused on creating for behavioral issues. This lesson is mostly direct instructions and can become boring for students and have issues arise. To combat this, using verbal reminders to keep students regulated and also moving them to a closer seat or table to me may reduce talking or misbehaving. To close this lesson out, I'll use a short 2-minute video I found. It explains some examples of deserts around the world that the students just learned in the lesson. It also introduces some examples of plants and animals which we have learned about in some of the next lessons, which can spark interest in the students. In the lesson, students learn about how over time sedimentary rock is layered in formations. I chose this lesson for students to understand that fossils trapped within the rock show evidence and histories of animals that lived in that environment before. This transitions into the next lesson on animals that inhabit the desert. This lesson is a use of constructive play to guide the understanding of how mountain ranges, rock formations, and canyons have formed over time. Using Play-Doh and other materials exactly models how nature has layered rock sediment over time to create rock formations and canyon layers. Adaptations for the lesson, I chose to go with developmental disabilities. These may be physical or mental. If a student has a physical disability and the student can't participate, the goal will be for them to have an assistant like me, the teacher, to construct the mock mountain range, but the student picks out the materials they would like to use. If the student has a mental disability, this activity is still achievable, I would say, to create a mock rock formation with the materials provided. To close out the lesson, I'll use it as a transition for the next lesson, which is on animals. The students will have just learned about certain animals become fossilized when they die and shows that they lived in that area before. They will also learn how some animals use the mountains and canyons for shelter. I'll then ask them what types of animals they think live in the same area now, and end the lesson and get them ready for the next lesson. The lesson on animals is about the many kinds of animals that live within the deserts. They will also learn how desert animals have traits passed down that help them survive, which satisfies the lesson standard. Each continent will have at least 3 animal examples that live within deserts, showing how different animals have different traits to survive in the deserts around the world. They will notice how some deserts may have similar animals of a species. Adaptations for this lesson include focusing on behavioral issues more deeply on self-regulation. Once again, giving student verbal reminders to not interrupt activities or the lesson is aiming to diminish those interruptions and improve their self-regulation. To close the lesson out, I will ask students to raise their hands to answer what their favorite animal they just learned about is and give a quick reason why. I'll then ask them if they know what types of plants that animal eats. This will create a transition by telling them to wait for the next lesson. The plants lesson. This lesson will start out with asking students if they know what plants some of the animals we have learned about in the previous lesson. After showing photos and videos of the types of desert animals on each continent, a quiz will be given out that has 10 points in a word box to link to a continent. We will go over the quiz answers, and then the student will get to know the correct answers and change them as it is ungraded. I'll ask them about a plant they found interesting to let them know they can choose that for the next lesson to create a shoebox diorama. Adaptations for this lesson include: I like to bring in a real cactus for this lesson, but they can create issues that need an adaptation. If students aren't able to self-regulate and refrain from touching the cactus after being told not to because they get hurt, then a fake cactus may be used or another plant like aloe vera. We'll give over the answers for the ungraded quiz. They'll have the opportunity to know the correct answers, and next they'll choose a continent and one of its plants we went over. I'll let them know that the next lesson includes choosing one of those to create a shoebox diorama with the other aspects of the unit. Climate environment lesson. First, it'll start off with students asking what they remember is in a desert. This will make them think about what they have learned as I introduce the shoebox diorama, which will be a summative assessment. They will gather materials and complete the project over a few days within the school. The projects will be graded over the requirements I made. Afterwards, the students will set up and view each other's projects and then come together as a group to discuss what they found interesting and what they learned. Adaptations for this lesson, I focus on adjusting to English language learners. Creating photos and directions with English native language is a great way to teach the student while being able to give them directions to properly complete the project. I'd like the students to set up their shoebox dioramas on their desk and go over the classrooms. Looking over each other's projects will allow them to see similarities and be reminded of information they may have forgot. Afterwards, we'll gather as a group to cover what they found interesting and what they learned from someone else's project. Engaging families. One of the best ways to engage families in a unit plan and the school curriculum is to invite the family into the actual classroom to assist in their child's education. Rachel Shearer states in her article, her best strategies are mystery reader program, special events volunteer, teacher's helper, and academic coaches. Rational and conclusion. My unit plan is developmentally appropriate because in each lesson, I make sure each student is developing their physical, language, cognitive, and social emotional domains through fine motor skills, new vocabulary, teaching relationships between desert aspects, and sharing their admiration for another student's project. The NAEYC states educators design and implement learning environments to help all their children achieve their full potential across all domains of development and across all content areas. Making sure students develop all 4 domains will do this. My unit plan is theoretically grounded through Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory. His theory is about how human development is shaped by social interactions through the person's environment. The article titled Bronfenbrenner's Ecological Systems Theory states development depends not just on individual traits, but on how people interact with families, schools, communities, and society. I try and incorporate many social interactions throughout the unit by trying to include parents, help, zoos, and other resources in peer-to-peer interactions.